So,
well, we're back.
It's been a little while.
It has been. This
is the
hold on. This virus kind of sucks.
Well, yeah. I can't even be optimistic about it. I mean, we couldn't even film stuff. You know, we couldn't even film stuff. The new movies that we were looking forward to.
You had a completely new schedule for a while.
I was working the night shift.
I started working from home, and my company was like, "You can just stay. Just well, like, yeah, we're gonna close the office. Just keep working from home." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
So, like, we just could not find time to film anything and watch anything that we really wanted to.
The first weekend, we watched 3 movies, which we just posted.
We just posted because we finally we really were like, we need to get, like, we started hanging out on weekends a little bit more.
Your schedule went back to normal.
And yeah, so it was like, okay, so how about we, actually edit these videos real quick and put them up. But something that, obviously, since newer movies were not coming out and we couldn't really review newer movies, we were thinking, like, what are some things that we could talk about, And one kind of list or idea that kind of came to mind was, what are our favorite opening movie scenes? Like, scenes to open up a movie.
And this was we came up with this. It was about 3 weeks ago, and we started talking about it, just me and you. And
yeah, no, we did.
And there was a specific movie that is on our list that started this conversation. But yeah, we started talking about it, and we're gonna make a video about this
because there's so many. There's certain.
And I am almost 100% positive we have forgotten.
So. You know what's funny? The whole time, like, I even showed a friend this list, and I was like, and he's really into movies as well, and I was like, I'm forgetting something. Like, there's some movie out there that I'm not thinking of. Mm. But I mean, I keep going over, like, every movie that I look at all the DVDs and Blu-rays that I have, and it's like, no, I think I'm pretty confident, especially in our top 10.
Yeah.
List.
Let's talk about a couple movies first that not really our honorable mentions yet. We'll do our honorable mentions kind of like right between 2 and 1. But let's talk about some things that didn't make the list for specific reasons. So, let's start off Saving Private Ryan.
Okay, so we
have 2 movies in this category.
In this little category. So this is a category where these two it's like the first 15, 20 minutes of the movie are hands down movie history. Great, you can consider it an opening of a movie, but it's not the opening scene.
Yeah.
The opening scene of Saving Private Ryan is what ends up being Matt Damon's character, Private Ryan, in the cemetery, and it breaks down crime.
Yeah.
And it's very impactful.
They're in France, they're in Normandy.
Very impactful scene, but it's not D-Day. That's not the opening scene.
And then it flashes to D-Day,
now,
and that goes on.
The D-Day scene in Saving Private Ryan, that, you immediately it is so intense.
Yeah.
It's arguably one of the best scenes ever in movie history, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
It's one of those things that, up until that point,
War movie
was kind of glorified in a sense, and that's not to say that this movie doesn't depict the people there
being heroic.
It's just it shows
it's the horrors of war, and
like
how realistic it probably was.
Next up.
Man, and it sucked because we were sitting there going, man, it's that montage of them falling in love, and it was like, well, technically the opening scene is like him in the movie theater and then him walking home. And honestly, the opening scene itself probably could be in the top 10.
It's good
because it shows them meeting.
The opening sequence of this movie, not the opening sequence.
No, it's like the opening montage of their life.
It hits you.
It's like arguably the greatest love story in film history, and they were able to tell it in about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And it is heartbreaking.
Yeah, you get there and you go, oh no.
And I remember being in theaters and tearing up, and then I was like, man, this movie started 10 minutes ago. What is happening?
Yeah. But no, that's a good one. But it's
not the opening scene. You know, so those were the two movies in particular where it was like, if those two moments in those films were the opening scene, I think for sure they would be on this list.
Yeah.
But they're not.
And then we have some that we left off because we felt
there was a potential for me. There was a potential for like recency bias.
Yes.
These are movies that came out in the past 5 years. One of these actually just had its 5th year anniversary.
Yeah.
To start out, Baby Driver.
And it's great.
Baby Driver's awesome because it shows how he's a getaway driver, and it shows all from his perspective, and everything's timed to music, and he's in his car, and then the chase scene after is awesome.
Oh, it's all timed to music,
yes,
which was
something that was like, oh, wait,
this is a movie I saw 3 times in theaters.
You did what now?
Yeah, and it's
oh wow.
Yeah, it's really good.
No, it's awesome. But it's another thing I love about certain movies, and Baby Driver does it in particular. I love cold opens.
Yeah.
No credits, no nothing. It's just immediately jumps into the movie, and Baby Driver does that.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Next up, this is a movie that we feel is probably, and we may end up doing a review on this one.
I'll gladly do a review of this movie.
This was one of our favorite movies from 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was so fun. So fun.
Yeah, this was, and it's not like a funny movie or anything, but
no, I just had a blast.
Yeah, you watch. It's Overlord.
Yes.
And the opening to Overlord is one of the
it's so
most
intense. Now, we saw this in IMAX, and the sound of this scene was insane. When you were watching it, it was so loud and so chaotic.
You were in it. It opened, and we left the movie theater talking about we really liked that. But the opening scene,
the first thing, because we saw, it was me, you, was it Sarah with us too? So it was me, you, and Sarah, and literally
Philip was Philip.
No, I don't think so.
No, he won. Anyway,
that's besides the point. We literally everyone almost said simultaneously, "How about that opening scene?"
Yeah,
where it's D-Day. And it's surprisingly in a movie.
It's not Normandy. It's them. It's the parachuters.
Yeah, it's
like
easy,
dropping.
It's Easy Company, like they parachuting in.
Yeah,
and from the plane getting shot up, and then him jumping out,
and their captain, or him having to keep them focused.
Yes,
on what they have
while the plane is on fire and going
and
down, exploding, and he's like,
and it's all these, and they're like they're kids that have never had the experience, and he's like, you gotta go. Focus on the light, like you got it. And oh man, Overlord's great.
And no, it's just, and when I say fun movie, I don't mean funny. I just mean like from beginning to end. I have an absolute blast.
I've seen it
4 times now.
Yeah, I've seen it. I think I've only seen it. I've seen it in the theater. Oh, I've seen it 4. But anyway, it's
great
from beginning and end.
Super
great,
fun movie.
But you will, the first time watching it through, what will stick out to you, at least for us, was the opening scene.
Well, I was about to do what I usually would do and jump into that movie. We'll review that movie. We'll discuss it. The next movie is the one that I said just actually had its 5th year anniversary, and I've always thought the beginning to Mad Max Fury Road,
it's good,
was awesome.
It's good.
Between him getting caught by those people, but it's him trying to escape, and he's
eating
he's eating the lizard, but then him getting tattooed, and when he's trying to escape, and it's just like in a short 5-minute period, they already have established this world that's so crazy, and it's like there's these guys that are like white, and like I love that movie.
Well,
it's so I can easily rewatch.
Both agree that that's one of the better movies of the last decade.
Yes. Oh yes.
And that it is.
But that opening scene, it just sets the tone for the movie.
It does.
You know it's going to be like.
And the next one,
this one, I remember seeing this one in theaters.
And see, I've never seen this movie,
but
I have seen this opening sequence.
I had to show you the opening scene,
and I was like, "This is hands down one of the best."
It's because it felt so real. It's The Revenant. That opening scene where they are going head to head with the Indians. The Indians are they are ambushing their pelting camp. It's like violent in a way that feels realistic, and you're like, I think this is probably something that would happen and how it looked, and it's just crazy how they're just kind of talking at the campsite, and then it starts, and then it just goes, and you are like, oh my God, like, this is, you feel so scared because you're like,
feels like you're there.
Yeah, it feels real, and wow, what a film. And I remember being in theaters thinking, I turned to my friend and we were watching it, and I was like, we're in for a ride. Whether it may be brutal, and it is brutal, but I was like, we're in for something pretty special. And
after that, we've spent enough time talking about
You want to get into the top 10?
We got to get into the top 10.
Okay.
Number 10.
Number 10. So this list is on a whiteboard. I was writing this list, and this is where for me, it was like, there's just so many good opening scenes. Number 10, I wrote number 10, I was going, I cannot believe. I could not believe that this was number 10, but I looked at the rest, and I was like,
this has the most iconic line in our top 10.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Of the most iconic line from the opening scene.
Anyway, we're enough build up.
I mean, I think we both quoted this a lot.
And number 10 for us, our collective list, was Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas.
Yeah.
It's like, the way it sets up is just they're driving along, and you're like, okay, what's going on? And you hear something bumping in the back. And the way they're talking, they're like, do we have a loose tire? What's going on? And every time I rewatch Goodfellas, I can't tell if they're just joking around or if they legitimately almost forgot that they had a dead body. It's so strange the way that they're delivering that line, but then they take them to like the woods. They take the car to the woods, and they open it up, and Joe Pesci just there's a body in there, and Joe Pesci stabs him, and you're just like, it's immediately happening.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is going on? Like, how did they get to this point? And you hear Ray Liotta go, as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And he closes the door, and it just says Goodfella. And I like, every time I watch it, I'm just like in it. I'm in the movie. I just fucking love it. Because it just raises so many questions, and you're just like, I want to see how they got to this point.
Yeah, and then you get it. Oh, Goodfellas is great.
Yeah, man, I love Goodfellas. It's every time I go down like Scorsese's best, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I think it might be it. I think it's Goodfellas, but that could be a debate. That's a debate for another time.
I've got so many.
A
lot of people put Goodfellas because that's like the iconic. That's like the gangster movie. But like, I have some like personal favorites. I really like Gangs of New York, which also, to mention Scorsese openings.
Yeah,
Gangs of New York.
That one's cool because you see, like, it starts out and they're like, it's almost like an underground tunnel, but you see Liam Neeson.
They've got the music playing. That's great. And then, other Scorsese movies, Wolf of Wall Street, I really like. I really like The Aviator. Hugo might be one of the most underrated movies.
It's almost like he's one of the best filmmakers of all time.
You go a list on and on and on.
Anyway, let's get to number 9.
The Godfather. If there's one gangster film that tops Goodfellas.
Well, I think Godfather is the definitive gangster film, in my opinion. And, you know, what's funny is we actually wrote like a huge list. It was like 30 or so movies, and we kind of narrowed it down from there. And Godfather was something I just kind of threw on there. I was like, oh yeah, like you're introduced to Vito
at the wedding.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, it's a good opening. And then, but there were certain movies where we decided to pull up on YouTube
because it's been a couple years since we'd seen the movie,
and I was like,
for me at least, The Godfather. It's probably been 4 or 5 years since I've seen it.
Right. So
we threw it up on the screen.
We threw the opening up, and watching it. Not only was
we got about halfway through it, and we were like, no, this is top
10 material. And not only that, immediately after the clip, it was like a 6-7 minute clip, and right after it ended, I was like, God, we gotta watch the fucking Godfather. Love that movie.
But it is, and the wonder that it starts
it's
the
opening line of him saying, I've always believed in America.
Yeah.
Like he's talking about, and it zooms out on that guy. And then you just be introduced to Vito and Marlon Brando, the way he plays him. He has that cat in his hand, and he's just like, you know, and it's the classic like, you know, like he's Yeah, no, that's an opening.
So that's Godfather, number 9.
Number 8 is probably the longest opening scene on this list.
Probably.
It's
is
like
a solid
15, 20 minutes. And it is Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West. When it's almost all, I don't think there's very little dialogue.
No, hardly any at all.
And it's that whole thing. They're at the
This
train
is
station.
probably my favorite Western, by the way. I really like Once Upon a Time in the West.
The first time I watch it, first of all, Claudia Cardinale, bombshell. But I also loved because I always knew Henry Fonda just playing the sweetest good guy.
His villain.
He is villainous.
Oh,
it'd be very similar if Tom Hanks decided to just do a villain and just crushed.
Yeah.
And I kind of hope he does. I've always wished Tom Hanks did that, but you know. But this is something. It also, when you watch those old spaghetti westerns, you do understand where Tarantino was so good at being able to build tension. And this scene in particular is very quiet, and you can tell it's these 3 guys are waiting for someone, and they wait for the train gets there, and it's like there's so much happening, and it's the classic spaghetti westerns where they keep zooming in, and it gets closer and closer on their faces.
Yeah,
it's just such an awesome scene, and then when it ends. You're like, it is that realization, like, that was all one scene. Like,
yeah, it was all one scene.
Whoa.
And then it introduces you to that character.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, he's a bad.
Yeah.
Like, he's for real.
Harmonica?
Yeah.
Oof. Okay. All right. I'll let you introduce number 7. This one wasn't on my top 10.
This one wasn't
I think it arguably one of the more iconic scenes on the list. I just personally never was, blown away by it.
When we first brought this up, this was
your number 3.
Yeah, this was number 2 or number 3 for me, and it's Patton.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, the image of George C. Scott in front of that American flag.
It's to me. Again, I just think opening scene. That's just. I mean, this is one of the things. It's one of the things. When we were making this list, this was one of the movies I was like, Patton.
Right, and I was like. I get it. I'm not going to argue with you. It's just something that never got me like that, Mm-hmm. But I think that was another scene that we watched on YouTube, and it's like a 6-minute speech, and it's just like
it's him in front of the flag.
It's the introduction of basically showing that George C. Scott completely embodied General Patton.
And while yes, the rest of that movie's pretty good to me. I've seen that movie probably 3 times, 3 or 4 times. And if you ask me to recall a scene or something, I'd have a tough time. I remember when he's going to visit the people in the hospital,
and he's mad at the guy
he's not actually. Yeah, and it's I remember that, but mainly what sticks out to me is him and giving the
American flag.
American flag.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Number 6.
This is where this list came from.
Yes,
this is because got us started.
We decided let's watch.
Let's
watch the Dark Knight Rises or the Dark Knight trilogy again.
Yeah.
And actually, number 6 is it's
a code because we said, "Oh, the Dark Knight," and then the next night we watched Dark Knight Rises, and we were like, "Oh yeah."
Well, okay. So let's get into the Dark Knight first. So the Dark Knight. Every time I watch it, do you not try and pinpoint which window explodes?
I don't, but I've told you before when I think, and there's so many iconic moments in that movie, and it's a great movie, and the performance given by Heath Ledger is amazing.
It's a case
but when I think of that movie, I think of that sound zooming in on the
sounds
window,
like razor blades,
and then I think of him taking off his mask, going straight.
Yeah, several of these movies do a great job of introducing what type of character this specific character is going to be. And both Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises does it perfectly. Mm-hmm. I think Nolan is so good at crafting villains. And obviously these are based on comic books, but the introduction of both Joker and Bane are fantastic.
Yeah.
And with the Dark Knight, like you just see, like it's this whole bank heist, but there's one guy that's not speaking. Now, all of them have masks on, but one guy's not speaking.
It was all part of the plan.
And how they were able to do it's so fun to watch. And then in Dark Knight Rises, him hijacking that plane.
That's just awesome to watch.
Yes, it's so fun to watch. And man, every single time I watch Dark Knight Rises, I'm like, fucking Bane is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten to the point I start arguing like.
We both.
I think
the weakest part of that movie is the twist.
Yeah. But I remember seeing Dark Knight Rises in theaters and seeing that opening scene and thinking, man, it may be just as good as Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, inevitably, but it was like, God, what a way.
It does have both me and you, one of our favorite moments of the trilogy. That do you feel in
when
charge?
He's talking to Ben Mendelsohn?
Yeah.
So do you feel in charge? God.
And the way he just lays his hands.
He was like,
on
buddy, you don't know.
It's the Godfather. The Godfather. He does it in the opening scene.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
We need to move on.
Number 5.
And this was one that me and you both
we agreed on. Like this did come out.
It's Drive.
Another case of introducing like what this character's about and like basically showing what I guess a real getaway driver would be like. Usually when you see like getaway drivers in movies,
even though I've always had questions, and as much as I love that opening scene, I've always, like you, I think you might even brought it up when we rewatched it, but it's like, did they get away in that first one?
He got away.
Yeah,
he was thinking. He was like, I'm going to drive to state.
I am not sure that those guys, because the cops were coming in and they had bags and stuff.
He was like, I'm out of here. But he laid that out for him. He was like, I'll get you where you need to go. He's like, I'm not going to hold the gun for you, and
hold the door. I'm not going to
hold the door for you. Like, no. He's like, I'll give you 5 minutes.
You've got 5 minutes.
And something that I've always loved also is them showing Bryan Cranston, and they show the garage, and it's all these really cool like
and
older
it's the
cars.
Thought process of
this is probably what people who are getaway drivers are thinking. They're
most common car and most common color.
It's like a silver Toyota Camry.
It was a Impala. It was
you're right.
It was
a Chevy
most
silver
common car in LA.
In LA, also just Nicholas Winding Refn shoots LA beautifully.
Oh,
it's awesome.
It's a great looking movie.
And showing Bryan Cranston going, it's the most common car, but I've souped it up. Like you're gonna have a lot of like pick me up. Like you're gonna be good. It's showing like how that kind of goes down and how he's able to get away, and it's an awesome open, because that's another case of like fuck, like you're just introduced to this kind of underground type world.
Mm-hmm. No, it is, because you're like, who's Bryan Cranston? What are they like?
Okay, so what's their deal? And he's Ryan Gosling not speaking, like he's just like so stoic and like it again, another case of introducing a character that's just like, whoa.
Again, this whole top 5 is
fucking
great. Top 6. They're all great, but this was one of the first movies that came. Then at number 4, Drive was 5. Number 4,
this was
one of the first ones that came out of our mouths.
Came out of your mouth. I told you, there's one on this list that I have always thought like, yeah, that's the best opening scene. But you're right. This was one that was early on. You're like, oh, we got to write this down.
And it's Jaws.
It's Jaws. When you first see Jaws, you do have that feeling of like, oh yeah, the ocean's terrifying.
Yeah.
And that opening scene is what does it. It's going out swimming at night, having fun, you're drunk.
To me, that's the scariest scene in the movie.
Yes.
They go skip when they. I mean, you go. They're at a bonfire on the beach. They're having a good time. He's trying to. Everybody wants some. So going skinny dipping.
Let's go skinny dipping, buddy.
Wrong.
Dude, and it's funny how also, because you brought this up to me years ago about how they filmed it. It just sums up like movie making way before there were real rules.
They tied a harness to her and then tied boats and drug her in different directions.
How dangerous! But it is like scary.
But it is effective as hell.
Yes, because like getting drug around and then she's dead.
And the first jerk was she looked legitimately terrified.
Yeah, it was like, oh wait, what?
Yeah.
Like and that's what I mean. Like when you're first watching that movie, it was like, oh man, there's things in that water that can eat you.
Oh, I remember. I've told anybody talk about movies that have affected me personally, like in the way I live my life. Jaws.
Don't go. When I see people,
And I still get in the. I mean, I still go to the beach and everything, but everybody in the back of their mind is thinking, "Oh, I've seen Jaws. Like I know how this story ends."
I need, for me, like the moment I get up to like here, I'm like, it's time to go back. Like anytime the water's getting there, like I can't. Nah, man. Like
I remember the first time I saw this movie. I was like 3 or 4. And we were at Nan and Pop's, who live on the Georgia coast, by the way. And we were going to the beach that day, and I'm sure, actually, I think it was a Memorial Day weekend.
What was Mom and Dad? What were they?
Jaws is a great movie.
It is a great movie, but it's like we're about to go to the beach. Let's put on Jaws
Well,
for this
it was
4-year-old.
It was like a Memorial Day. Might have been 4th of July. I just remember it was a holiday weekend.
All right, okay.
And so
All
it comes on T. It was on like TNT or TV.
Yeah, it's still terrifying.
It is awesome.
Oh, I love Jaws.
And I saw that movie as a 3-4-year-old and was like, I love that movie. But when I went to the beach that day,
you're like, I'm playing in the sand. Oh man. Okay. All right. We do need to continue.
And this number 3 is another one.
It's another Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
And it's Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
It's Indiana Jones. This is another case of introducing a character.
I want to also say that the opening scenes for all 3, the first 3 Indiana Jones,
are they're good.
Actually, the 4th one's pretty good too. I'll go all 4. The opening scene where they're racing down the highway.
I'll say this: 1 and 3 for me. Well, 2 has the classic line, "The poison you just drank." Like I love that shit. But the 3rd one, I told you, Mom and Dad taped that when it was on HBO, and I watched that opener with River Phoenix when I was a kid. I watched that shit over and over. I thought it was the coolest thing. Like,
again, they ended up. A lot of people thought it was cool because then they made The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones.
But we decided mostly to put Raiders on here because it's the introduction of Indiana Jones.
And you get everything.
Yes, you get
who Indiana is.
Well, he's like that simultaneously cool, but also like he's just winging it. And you get him using his whip, like he whips like the gun away from the guy. And you also get him like figuring out things on the fly, like he's sitting there weighing out this is probably about
this looks good.
Yeah,
I think.
And then
he's really confident about it.
But then it's like, oh fuck, and it's like he has running away from the boulder. You have the things, the thorns going, like.
And in terms of the movie, you get his story, and then you also introduced to the villain.
Yeah,
in that too,
and of course
Ivan Ooze.
Yes, it is Ivan Ooze. What if he was just dressed as Ivan Ooze, like in the jungle? Here's my slime. Anyway, but then you get him escaping.
Yeah.
On the plane, and he's like, "I hate snakes.
Start the plane, Chuck.
Start the plane.
Start the plane, Chuck."
It goes back to
there's a snake on the plane, Chuck.
I hate snakes. But it goes back to what we were kind of talking about. Is like, it was, as we've talked about it before, the genre of the action adventure genre is just not. It's not played out a whole lot, especially not anymore. And that beginning scene in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark,
you watch that and you're like, God, this movie's so much fun.
And it's only been 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you knew you were in for such a fun ride. And even if like the rest of the movie, by some chance, was boring, you're like, fucking opener, great. Yeah. Like, it's so good. And it has a young Alfred Molina in it.
Yeah.
Fucking tries to swindle him.
Doc Ock.
He fucking dies. Bad. And he has
Alfred Molina. I said Doc Ock. He's been in so. I looked at his filmography the other day.
He's
in so much.
Yes, and sometimes they're not even big parts.
No,
it's just like I just want to be in this.
Yeah. And he's worked with some fantastic directors and stuff.
I think he's someone that's like, I just want to be in your movie. Like, that seems like fun. Number 2. This was another one that
It was probably in the first 5 minutes of us coming up with this
I
list,
brought it up.
But we said it and we were like, yeah. There might not be a more iconic sound to open a movie.
Yes. I totally agree.
And it's Lion King.
It's Lion King. When and just like seeing the whole animal kingdom show, and you're like, okay, like, oh, what's... and you see Rafiki
Yeah.
put the thing, put the and and that's an iconic image. It's him holding Simba like that, and it's like, you know, Mufasa got the whole animal kingdom there. Just
how much of a boss?
I know.
He just flexing on people. He's
guys,
like, hey guys,
I have sex.
look what I did.
That's my boy. And it's not like, oh, family, friends. It's like, no, everyone. But that's what he does, and it's the circle of life being played, which is Elton John, and it's fucking great, and like everything in that scene is just awesome and beautiful. And even like I remember rewatching the opener to the new one and being like, it's not the same.
No,
even though it's like shot for shot, I was like, it's not the same. It's beautiful animation too. Like I love it. Like
the original Lion King was gold.
Yeah, man.
Well, I
love it.
I mean, it's one of the best movies of all time.
Yeah, but it's so good, and it's a scene that everyone, I think, even if you were like a little kid, you could probably say that's probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah. Like
and there's no dialogue, there's nothing story wise. It's just a tiger being born and showing how I guess the animal kingdom is just respects, not tiger, excuse me, lions. You know, it's just only the titular, it's the Lion King. Yeah, it's about a tiger. Anyway, but yeah, I totally agree. This was one I was like, because we ranked them individually, and I found myself like, no, this has to be near the top. It's iconic. It's great. The music's great. It's beautiful. Like everything about it is amazing. But that leads us to number one, which I had as my number one.
I think I had it as 4 or 5.
See, I thought you had it as 3.
Maybe
it doesn't matter. This is one that I think is arguably one of the best scenes in movie history, as far as well written, as far as an introduction to another case of introducing a character. It is just brilliantly played out.
It's Inglourious Basterds.
And the opening of Inglourious Basterds is unbelievable. I remember seeing Inglourious Basterds with Dad. Dad didn't even want to go see it.
All I will say, too, is this is not the only Tarantino movie with a great opening. Pulp Fiction in the diner.
Yeah.
Reservoir Dogs at the diner.
But
he really likes diners.
Yeah, well, who doesn't?
Yeah.
A lot of feet there, probably. No, I'm just kidding. But the
they got
opening
diners.
He's tried to make it a thing. But the opening of Inglourious Basterds was something special. I remember going to see it with Dad. Dad didn't even want to go. And after the opening scene ended, Dad was like, that was great. He was like, you know how Dad's very firm on things? He was like, that's filmmaking. Dad, I don't think has anyway, he just has strong opinions.
I think Quentin would agree.
And I think a lot of people would agree. The way it's played out, you know the father of this cabin he's stressing over something, but you're like, oh, it's just because these Nazis.
Yeah, and it's not till 2/3 through the scene that you realize that he's actually hiding Nazis.
He's hiding Jewish people.
Yeah.
Do you know how World War II played out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
you do know what that was about, right?
Okay. So and how it's played, it's written perfectly. And Christoph Waltz, who I think that performance is one of the best performances, specifically in the past 25 years.
I also love how, and I've heard him talk about it, but how he explored, in World War II, a lot of people looked alike. It wasn't like in other wars, specifically more recent, where wars were going on amongst countries with the ethnicities were so different. Mm-hmm. And in World War II, people looked like each other, so you could have spies.
Right.
And you didn't know who was good or who was bad, what religion you were, not unless it was previously known.
And he was.
But the way Tarantino recognized this, and listen to him talk about how he wanted to use dialogue in this movie and change languages.
See, I was about to say
Christoph Waltz uses language to get what he wants, what he's after.
He's holding conversation with this Frenchman for like a minute, and he's speaking in French, and he's like, "Listen, I've exhausted every bit of French that I can use. Yeah. I understand you can speak English. Let's speak English." They speak English, and it's a very pleasant conversation, and things are going well.
Then he makes towards the end of the conversation, he breaks and it's this big hulking man, and he breaks him down into tears, and then he goes, "I'm assuming because they're French, they don't speak English."
Assuming he goes, "I'm assuming because they have to run off, they don't speak English," and it was just like he
did that because French historically don't, and again that's
his
proud
again.
French, it's fantastically written.
It's the introduction of that character.
Yeah.
It immediately shows how smart
he brings in the Gestapo, and
conniving and cunning. Like and it's another case of Tarantino amazingly building all this tension. The moment, and it's also another great piece of filmmaking, is the pan down and showing the Jewish people underneath in the cellar. Mm-hmm. It was like all of a sudden the stakes have risen so much.
And then he brings in
and they shoot him, and it's just like, and that, I remember, and it's so loud because it's actually really quiet. It's actually like a kind of a peaceful conversation. And then
I love how the different pipe, they're smoking the different size pipes.
Oh, and Christoph Waltz has to bring out the biggest one.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that scene, there are times, and even though that movie, I think that movie is fantastic, there have been times I've watched it on Blu-ray and thought about like just rewinding it. So I can
what we forgot is our honorable mentions.
We did forget our honorable mentions. Quick honorable mentions. Bond movies in general.
There are some great Bond. The one that sticks out to all.
It was the one that we mentioned to each other.
Yeah, most agreed on is, and Bond movies, not only do they have some good opening sequences, much like Saving Private Ryan and Up, there's also some great scenes that happen post, like the opening credits too.
But the one that stuck out for us, and it's also because I think I grew up watching this movie, was GoldenEye.
Well, he also jumps off.
I know how awesome is that shit when he's like
actually feeling like somebody actually did it.
That's so wild. It's so good, and it is a dope opener. And I specifically, if you think about the time, that was the first Bond movie in, I want to say like 7 years, and people were like, I wonder how good Pierce Brosnan's going to be. And like to see that opener and see him do that, it was like, oh, fuck. Like we're in for a treat.
Yeah.
And GoldenEye was indeed a treat. Like GoldenEye was great. The rest of them, whatever. Pierce Brosnan I always felt bad for because I thought he was a pretty solid Bond.
I think he's a solid actor and a solid Bond. I thought the movies they put around his solid acting Bond
they really did not try.
GoldenEye is one of the best.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
The next one I put on here, I remember seeing this in theaters.
I did not see this in theaters.
It's a shame,
but
I told you, man.
It's really good.
It's Gravity. And more importantly, the reason I put Gravity in here is mainly because it's like 13-minute uncut scene, and it's just showing how they're just on the International Space Station, just cooling, just chilling.
Yeah.
And then it's just showing how chaos just happens so much. And the first cut that you see is her drifting off into space.
Yeah.
And it's all this tension that's just built. And I remember seeing this in theaters and being absolutely just floored.
Yeah.
And thinking, God, that was
I didn't have to see it in theaters to recognize how great the opening sequence was.
Man, it's something else in theaters, though.
Well, I mean, everybody said it because the way it should have been seen in IMAX 3D, and I did not see it.
I don't know what you were doing, bud. Next one.
This is another one that actually was pretty early on in our talks, and it kind of fell down the list.
Well, it's one that the reason I appreciate it is because it brings up so many questions.
And it's the thing.
Yeah.
And the way the thing starts.
You just see these guys in these helicopters, and it's the Morricone like score is like that. It's very kind of slow. And you see this dog just bolting through the snow, and you see these helicopter like kind of trying to find it and follow it. And you're like, okay, what's going on here? And then when they start shooting at the dog, you're like, whoa, like why are they trying to kill this dog? And then to see how the movie plays out, it's like, if only they had fucking shot that dog. You know, like, but that opening it's great. Like it really does. It sets the tone for the movie, but that opener, it does. You sit there and you're like, what is going on? Like, you're immediately in it. You're immediately already like, okay, so you're trying to figure out, like, why were these guys so keen
on killing the dog?
On killing this dog.
Yeah.
And, well, to end, on a more, we didn't have any real comedies in here.
This is by far the best opening for a comedy.
Well, I don't know if by far, it's just we didn't think of a lot. But this one always cracked me up, and it was the opening to Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Excluding the credit, the faux credits at the beginning that are funny. Excluding that, the opening when they go, yes, you just see you hear okay, he's on a horse, and then it's they're using coconuts, and they go up to that castle.
Are those coconuts?
And that guy's wondering. He's like, "Where'd you get coconuts? Are tropical." That's another case of like, oh, this movie's just going to be so silly, and it was. And that opening scene I've quoted a lot, where they're talking about like maybe a bird took it. A 5-ounce bird cannot carry a 1-pound coconut. Oh man. But yeah, I thought we should include, there are great openers in comedies, and I thought that was a good case of that. So, all right, that was our list of just great movie openers. I hope you enjoyed them. If you have any other openers that maybe we forgot, or ones that you think should be on this list, feel free to comment on that.
Yeah, please let us know, because this was something we worked on for a couple days, and we didn't do extensive research.
We weren't like in a laboratory, like, okay, yeah, that checks out. But it was more like, I think actually I like this one more than that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are thousands of movies, and there were plenty of great openers we did not put on this list that are great openers, and it's all it's a matter of opinion, But
I think
I'm pretty
with our top 10.
I'm pretty confident about our top 10.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, please comment if you have one that you want to add. And yeah, we will. I enjoyed making a list like this. I hope we kind of do something like this in the future. And please check us out next time with OurTake.
Check you later.
What was the opening of Dazed and Confused? Dazed and Confused kind of had a dope opening with Sweet Emotion playing.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. We'll see you.